Today I wanted to talk about a few things. One of them, a side effect that I myself am not immune from of the technology we have as far as communicating with each other. We all have our cell phones and computers and email accounts, Facebook accounts, etc. So pervaded has our have our lives become by these devices that when we're around other people, we yearn more and more for that time to be over, and we look forward more and more to those private moments where no compromise is required and we can simply listen to what we want, view whatever media we want, and be as silly or inane as we want. And I'm just as guilty of that as anyone else, if not more so. I get very annoyed by text messages, and I seldom use the telephone. The thing I like about the internet is that I can condense all communication, respond at my will and my convenience. And to call someone these days out of the blue, it's sort of an inconvenience. It's almost considered rude, because you're basically demanding that that person take time from whatever they're doing to discuss whatever you have to discuss. In Isaac Asimov's novel, The Naked Sun, there is a society of people on a planet called Solaria. Everyone on Solaria has legions of robot minions, and they all live on estates by themselves. And to actually physically interact with another person in the same room is quite a taboo subject. And so all of communication is done through what's called trimensic viewing instead, which projects holographic images of that person and their surroundings into your room. And so very seldom do people actually physically see each other. I see a tendency developing, at least in my life, where I am less and less interested in people's disagreements with my very fluid and shifting opinions. To have fluid and shifting opinions, to me, is maturity on a level that most people don't accomplish. Self-actualization, if you want to speak in Maslowian terms. The thing about communication is that we can never truly convey exactly what we mean. The existentialists understood this, and they took it to its dreadful extreme. In France and in other places, certain existentialists would isolate themselves behind locked doors, and some of them ended up committing suicide. So while no man is a rock or an island, certain people do better on their own. To me, having my own space where things are on my terms, I unabashedly admit to loving it, and I'm becoming less and less interested in things I was in my youth. And instead, I'd like to focus on sharing my knowledge with the world. I think I have a very unique perspective, and that's pretty much how I feel about communication. I also wanted to talk a little bit about the paradoxical nature of desire. In this life, sometimes things we want we'll never actually do or achieve or acquire until we stop wanting them. It doesn't make sense. But the universe is non-simultaneously apprehended. Robert Anton Wilson. What? what does that mean? The universe is non-simultaneously apprehended. Okay, so how can I apply the words of the guerrilla ontologists of our time to my life? If you strive for something and it constantly eludes you, then you have to remember there are dynamics to acquisition, dynamics to realization of one's true will and of one's place in the world. So we have to look at a number of factors. First, we have to see if an event has a high probability of occurring naturally. It's better to work with nature than against it. Second, is there a sufficient magical link? Magical, for lack of a better word. Magic is the achievement of one's will, or using one's will to bring about change. The third part is the difficult part because it has to do with the exhaustion of that desire in a ritualistic form. And this is where wish making and prayer and enchantment comes in. And if that is the avenue one goes, then is sufficient gnosis achieved? Is the alteration of consciousness achieved? Consciousness needs to be altered in order for us to acquire some of our more elusive desires. So there's scientific constants that need to be met when we go about getting what we want. And then the tricky part is wanting what is best for us and really knowing what we want before we get it. Because reality is malleable to the hammer of human consciousness, and the old adage about being careful what you wish for because you may get it is more sagacious than some would realize. It just sounds like a cliche, but happens to be true. So I stumbled upon a system that I call egomancy. It basically has to do with engorging the ego and then starving it. So what that means is I would do things that would fluff my own ego, such as creating these monologues or giving my opinion and really impressing someone, or doing something extravagant through either my connections or on my own, and crowing about it, making others feel jealous, etc., making an ass of myself. So engorging the ego and then taking a diametric point of view. So I would do something selfless like donate money to a hunger relief organization, or volunteer time, or help somebody out in a way that is humble and beneficial to them. And that tends to dissolve the ego. Also, drawing one's consciousness into the present moment and losing the illusions of past and future tends to dissolve ego. So if you can oscillate between engorgement of ego and then virtual annihilation of ego, you create a strange sort of dynamic, a strange sort of exchange between macrocosm and microcosm, and it manifests things that you want on a subconscious level very quickly and in dramatic fashion. And I've kept diaries about this because I've experimented with this this form of metaphysics, if you will, meta paradigm on its own. But it's kind of cool what you can do when you mess with your own way of approaching the universe, because the universe tends to confirm whatever beliefs are applied to it, and it's just really interesting and really fun. I've also found that when I leave a certain group, a lot of the things that I wanted but never achieved while I was a member of that group seem to manifest as I've been a member of groups like the OTO and the IoT, been an initiate of Santeria, and sometimes iconoclasm, or the destruction of images, especially sacred images to us, can hasten an egomantic paradigm shift, an egomantic manifestation of desire. And desire is one of the strangest things about being a human being on this planet. And we have desires, but we are not our desires. So if we realize that we cannot be defined by our desires, then we're liberated from them, and we're free to act as if they matter to us. And any effort made to get any desire is just as arbitrary as the system of beliefs that we used in the acquisition of that desire, or the reaching in a futile way toward that desire. Most people's minds are cluttered, filled with obnoxious jingles and ads and trite, terse bullshit. And so for them, I recommend a more simple approach. Meditation will be the subject of a later monologue, but you could do something like hold in a sneeze while imagining something that you want, and then when you sneeze, fully externalize that particular desire. It helps to create a sigil first. Write out what you want on a piece of paper, eliminate the repeating letters, and with the remaining letters form some sort of pictorial glyph, and it will serve as a symbol of that desire to your subconscious. And then there's a variety of ways that you can launch the sigil, and it doesn't have to involve mumbo jumbo and casting of circles and calling of watchtowers and that sort of thing. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but it can be something as simple as a sneeze, or rolling a spliff, drawing the sigil on the spliff, and then smoking it and watching TV. And you forget about it. That's the thing about desires manifesting, is we have to forget and not sit around waiting for the telephone to ring. That goes back to exhaustion of desire and externalizing it through a ritual means. But the ritual means doesn't have to be complex. It can be something very simple and fun. And we really can enhance our daily lives. We're given the tools. Unfortunately, people know how to disarm us and to make us weak and atrophied. And if we want to develop as full human beings, we'll explore all of our faculties beyond just the obvious sensate ones. And that's enough for today.